and gentlemen, welcome to this week's edition of the Rasslin Report. And here's your host, Rated R for Wrestling and Jonesy Chats Wrestling.
Welcome back to the Rasslin Report. I'm back again, Rated R for Wrestling, here with my boy Chats Jonesy from Jonesy Chats Wrestling. How you doing, Jonesy?
Very good. Thanks for having me again here. Should be great to chat this past week's wrestling. A lot to talk about yet again. Week 5, ever since we started this podcast, it's getting crazy and crazy week by week, isn't it?
Seemingly the timing has all lined up as to when we started this. Everybody started getting released and a bunch of stuff started going down on both WWE and AEW, and we got a lot more of that last night, but that'll be later on the show and we'll talk about all that stuff. We got a few topics to get into, a total of currently right now 12 topics to cover, so we're trying to get them as quickly as possible and try to answer as many things in the comments in the chat as we possibly can. So with this week, let me get you overall real quick. I know we don't have anything to talk about on Raw, but quickly surmise Raw for me on this one this week.
Yeah, I thought we're going on the road to Summerslam. It's meant to be the biggest event with fans since WrestleMania, and it's just very lackluster. Like, I think you could have missed this week's episode and not missed anything. Like, we're just getting rematches again and again, and when they've released over 100 people since 2020, there's no need for rematches. If you'd have kept some of these talents, you wouldn't have to do rematches again and again. It's what more can I say? We could just say this every single week. It doesn't really change. Like, it's getting to the point now with Raw where I think you better just read the results. We're waiting for something to happen, something to kick on. It's just not happening. I don't know if you feel the same. I know you review the show and stuff. I saw this week you didn't review the show. Was that because you was disgusted as well?
Well, that's a two-parter there. So first, it was my mom's birthday, so I didn't have a chance
fine.
to
That's
watch the show on time.
valid, then.
But either way, I probably wouldn't have done it anyways. It was so bad. It's just bad stuff.
I say, what were you doing watching the show when it's your mom's birthday, man? That's dedication, man.
Yeah, that is. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Raw. I mean, it seems such a simple issue, right? If you wouldn't have released everybody, you would have more people, so it would be so repetitive. But in terms of cost-cutting measures, that's what they're calling them, cost-cutting measures, and they're trying to cut back on a budget. I don't know. You know, whatever reason they have, Nick Khan has come in and kind of cleaned house. He kind of continues. I think he maybe want to assert himself as like nobody is safe in WWE, no matter who you are. Maybe that's the way they're going. But quickly, I got Noob & Co. and C Nation Dog. Say hello. Thank you guys for joining us as usual.
Guys.
Two mainstays in the chat of this whole time. It's been an interesting week. But the first small little story we're going to cover quickly is this one. Ric Flair released from WWE. Now, I heard reports that he requested this, or was it that they just got rid of him because they just wanted to get rid of him? What's the story on this one, Jonesy?
Yeah, so there's a couple of conflicting reports. So apparently Ric Flair was unhappy with how Charlotte's been booked. Something kind of went wrong there with something like that, so he was unhappy. And obviously, if he's not happy and stuff, they just don't want him there. The thing is, he's another one that's sort of not been doing much ever since the whole thing with sort of that angle where Lacey Evans, the whole thing that didn't happen, that he's never kind of recovered. But you can't really blame him if he's not happy. I think he'll go to AEW, and it'd be just if he's paired with Andrade, really. I think that's something I'd like to see. Maybe they could start a 4 horsemen or something. Like, there's obviously 3 of them there already, so that could be something logically they could do.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it happening. He leaves his daughter to go hang out with his son-in-law. It's kind of a funny thing there. I don't know if he's going to go to AEW or not. I don't really think... unless he wants to hang out with Shivani and JR all day, it's pretty much all he's going to do over there. He wasn't doing anything in WWE, in terms of being an on-screen presence, unless they bring him in every once in a while with Charlotte. But that Charlotte thing, she already kind of threw him away the last storyline we saw with them together. So I don't know why they keep him there. He's on a Legends contract anyways, I assume. He's no longer an on-screen talent. I guess that's the contract he got released from. Some interesting things there, but it's not a huge story, but it's interesting that in the wave of all these releases, Ric Flair is one of the names on the list.
I think it's one of them things. It's one of them. WWE just want to cut any costs they can. Any sort of negativity, any sort of cynicism or anything like that, they want to just get rid of. But for me, it could be a great game for AEW. I know you said AEW have got a stat roster. Just from a manager perspective, I think some of the work he could do with Tully Blanchard and people like that, if you go back to the 4 Horsemen stuff, I think it could be really fun.
Yeah, I mean, it would be pretty cool to see him. That. Yeah, Arn, Tully, and him in the ring at the same time. They could even bring JJ in too. He's been there. They could bring him in as well. Real quickly, C Nation Dog. Adam Cole has a hard decision. If he stays with WWE, he will be making millions now. But he showed a lot of NXT wrestlers and former Undisputed Era member Bobby Fish got released. We're gonna cover that a little bit later on. All that stuff going on. But again, he's not making that much money as compared to what he would be making on the main roster. He's got more of like, I guess, under, somewhere upwards of the 500K, I would assume a year is probably what he's making. So he's making really good money. I don't know if he can get better anywhere else, like in terms of a guaranteed contract.
I think the thing is, it depends on what sort of, when we cover it later, how desperate AEW are to try and get one over on WWE yet again. That's kind of what it'll probably come down to. But he's one that's been in NXT for a while. He's been fantastic. If he was 6'2", he would have been on the main roster already. I go as far to say that because he's his height of 5'8", he's been penalised because of that. For me, he's like a 1997 Shawn Michaels in some respect. The fact that he's that good, he's that talented, he's got everything. It's just the height that's let him down. And I don't know if I trust Vince McMahon to book him right. If he comes up to Raw or somewhere, I think he could be doing a Karrion Kross or something similar to that, maybe.
I agree with you. The only thing I see him, I don't think it's the height too, but it's also his physical appearance because he looks like a very average guy physically compared to other wrestlers. Like if he was in the physical condition of a Finn Balor, I think he may have gotten a call up already. Just because in terms of an athletic perception, he looks more of like an athlete than Adam Cole does. But a tremendous in-ring performer is just interesting. But like I said, we're going to cover that just a little bit later. Wrestling by Woodridge, thank you for joining us. Evening, lads. Hopefully you're both well. Yes, we are good. I've never understood the repetitive matches. How is it supposed to improve the ratings or quality of the show?
I think the thing with it is spot on with the comment. It's just one of the things. If it's a hot program where you need multiple matches, fine. But for the sake of putting it out there, someone wins a match. Why do you need to see it? I think this whole thing we said last week on our last episode was this Contender Series is absolutely brutal. Yes. Like on every brand, like every show WWE does now, they're having to do these contenders. And by the time you get to the pay-per-view, it's just really like it's the whole excitement's gone for me personally.
It has, and it's tough. Like before, they've always had 50-50 booking, but it never seemed that as repetitive now. Now it's 50-50, but with the same guys and the same matches over and over again. So they added a new layer to the normal 50-50 booking of WWE. They just repeat the matches over and over again rather than just have 50-50 booking in general. Now they just repeat the same matches and 50-50 them all the time. C Nation Dog, WWE 2K having a hard time with all released wrestlers. Yes, that's going to be a barren roster on that game. Nubin I'm seeing Charlotte Flair is going to be losing a lot of matches because her father got released. I think she's Teflon in that effect where that'll brush right off her. I don't think it'll affect her. I'm glad Karrion Kross is being booked like a jobber on Raw. He has no talent besides looks. He's nothing without Scarlett's. I mean, he falls off a lot without Scarlett, obviously, in terms of just optics. But I wouldn't go that far, C Nation.
I think he's got some great moves. The suplexes stuff are pretty cool. He's a bit limited in certain capacity, but I'm a fan. I think he's good. If you saw his work in Impact Wrestling, I think he was really, really good there. It's just the fact that without Scarlett, it's a big thing, obviously, for him, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think he's it's different styles. You don't have different styles on the show. You don't have everybody doing flip flops and flies all over the place and super kicks all the time. It's a different style for the show. I think it helps out. But with that topic out of the way, Ric Flair being released from WWE. The next one, All Out Joker. Who's going to be the Joker? And it's a women's casino battle royal, right? At All Out.
Yep. Yeah. So do you want to take a prediction or do you want me to just sort of go out there with who we reckon it's probably going to be?
I think it has to be somebody from Impact Wrestling. I think it has to be because the Forbidden Door has had nothing to do with the women whatsoever for the most part. They've done a lot of NWA stuff. For some reason, AEW likes to promote NWA women's, but nothing with Impact on their show. I think it may be either Jordan Grace or Deonna Purrazzo, the Impact champion. I think it's going to be one of those two.
I love those. I love that prediction. No, I'm going to go the opposite. Somebody released from WWE. It's going to be Ruby Riott.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about her. Yeah.
That's who I think it will be. She's rumored to be signed with AEW this week. It kind of fits. That'll be a place to put her in there. I think it's a great opportunity to get her out there. It'd be great to see her there. But I prefer Deonna Purrazzo by choice, so that's a great shout there. But I'm going to go Ruby Soho. I think it'll be fun to see her there. Let's hope it goes better than a WWE run. I'm sure it will, based on the talent she's got.
It does make more sense in terms of a Joker being kind of a factor. It being Ruby Soho makes more sense. But yeah, like the Impact stuff is just like you haven't touched the Impact women's division whatsoever. You haven't crossed it over really. I think it's about that time. Maybe they want to do it there, but if they don't, I mean, it'd be pretty interesting to see Ruby Soho there. It'd be pretty cool.
Definitely.
C Nation Dog doesn't like Karrion Kross. Keith Lee is better than Karrion Kross in ring. Yes. Everything else, I mean, it's subjective. You can make your cases for both people. Wrestling by Woodridge. Ruby Soho has been rumored to join AEW, so it could see it being her. Mickey James maybe to bring some AEW talent over to Ian Power.
That'd be great. Like Mickey James in AEW would be fun, particularly this whole thing of NWA Power and stuff, like her being an ambassador, the women and stuff. It'd be fun. But for me, they want to go for big names. They're clearly on the offensive to get ex-WWE stars at the moment. So Ruby's the one really. I think it's going to fit. It would fit the Joker as well, as you said.
Yeah, it would fit. I think it would make a ton of sense. To be honest with you. I'm going with a history repeats itself route. Mercedes Martinez.
That's a great shout. Never know. Like, it would be great to see her land on her feet. Like, I think she's not really had a fair rub. Obviously, when she's in Retribution, that was a bit horrid, and
Yes.
the way she was treating NXT and stuff. Yeah, I don't think. I think she'll go Impact Wrestling. I really consider Impact Wrestling. In all honesty, I don't think she'll go AEW.
Well,
I don't think she's really their type of wrestler.
she did get injured, right? And the last time we saw her when that match against Xia Li, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if she's recovered yet. And now these people that have been released, obviously we'll touch on it later, but did they get 90-day compete clause, non-compete?
No, they got 30 days.
30 days. All right. So they got, they're actually better off. We'll see how that goes down. All right. So the Joker, we are predicting those. Most likely, I think when you brought up Ruby Soho, makes more sense to be her, but holding out hope that it may be an Impact person. I think it might be more interesting. Now, topic number 3, SummerSlam backup plans. With the pandemic seemingly ongoing and raging on for the rest of our lives, we are running into some issues with SummerSlam. SummerSlam is supposed to take place at Allegiant Stadium, home of the Las Vegas Raiders. It's a domed, yes, it has a dome on it, so it's technically an indoor stadium that holds somewhere upwards of 70,000 to 80,000 people. I believe they have just replaced their mask mandate, Nevada, or at least the city of Las Vegas. Are there any issues of SummerSlam not happening at Allegiant Stadium?
Yes, so the thing with that, they reckon it's probably going to happen, but there is a backup venue already scheduled. The current plans as of today are, if SummerSlam is out of Vegas due to the mask mandate and mass gatherings being banned, they expect the show to happen at the Phoenix Footprint Center. That's where they're doing SmackDown the night before, so they will just set the show up there. For me, I hope it's going to be in Vegas, hopefully, but at least even if it is at Phoenix, we'll still have some sort of fans there, which would be great.
I would tend to lean towards that it will happen in that stadium because remember, I believe, I keep always saying this, and I believe, but I never end up checking. I think the Manny Pacquiao fight is the same night.
It's the same night.
Same night, right? It's at the T-Mobile Arena. So that's 2 major events they would have to cancel in Las Vegas. I don't see this, the city of Vegas or the state of Nevada actually backing out on that type of income coming in. So I think they'll hold off on it. I think maybe they'll do a mass gathering ban after the fact. They did the mask mandates, but I guess everybody wear a mask in there. It pretty much is what it is at this point. I don't see them being in too much trouble as to not having the show, because again, if that other fight wasn't happening there the same night, I think maybe. But I think since both are happening there, the amount of income coming in, I don't think they're gonna risk it.
It'd be a real shame, like based on the layout they've had with obviously John Cena and all the expense of all these other people they're going to bring in. Like potentially, I think it'll be a shame, but I hope it happens. It'll be a shame really not to have the capacity crowd, because I think that's going to make the SummerSlam, particularly the reaction the wrestlers will get when the fans are there. It's always much better. They always perform much better, I find.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that point. Yeah, it'll add so much more to the show. Silk, what's going on, Silk? Evening, gentlemen. You're ruling out Lana. LOL. That's actually, I mean, he puts LOL at the end, but it's a solid pick because Miro being there and everything.
It's a good shout. Never know. I don't know. I think she hasn't really got that ability in the ring. I think like to be somebody that's going to be sustainable in like a Joker battle royal. So for me, I don't think so. But she may come in later at some point. It would make sense for her to come in alongside Miro at some point, I would have thought.
Yeah, I don't think she'll wrestle there, but I think she'll a managerial role. Yeah, it'd be pretty cool. C Nation, will there be a casino battle royal for the men?
There should be. Yeah, I would have thought so.
We'll see if that goes down. That's still not finalized yet. Yep. I hate Karrion Kross as much bona fide heat, and I like The Miz. I never liked Karrion Kross, and he's a no talent besides looks. I mean, bona fide heat talks a lot about The Miz, but he technically doesn't actually dislike The Miz. He just likes bringing him up a lot, making fun of him all the time. Wrestling by Wooldridge. I would be so disappointed if it got canceled. Glad to hear about a plan B. It's shaping up to be a great show.
I think it is on paper. All the matches, despite the lack of heat in the feuds and stuff, I think that it's going to be great. Like in ring, I think it looks particularly fantastic. The Seth Rollins Edge match, so for me, is going to be the money match of the weekend. Besides the takeover the night after, which will be the Walter Ilya Dragunov match.
Now, have they announced where that takeover next night will be at?
I think it's the Performance Center. I might be wrong though. That's not 100%. I should have probably checked before we came on, but I think it's the Performance Center. In all honesty.
It makes sense. Yeah. If anybody knows in the chat where WrestleMania Takeover 35, will take place, let us know, please. WrestleMania Watchers. Also, we had the Casino Men's Battle Royal at Double or Nothing.
It's a good way of getting a new talent out there, but having to build it up and hype and stuff, and like the amount of releases in WWE and stuff. I think it's people's no complete causes will be up, so that'd be it's an easy way to get somebody on TV, really.
Yeah. I like the person behind Karrion Kross, but I don't think he has much talent. Like I said, I mean, it's subjective. It depends on the styles you like. If you're into more jumping around, a lot of big spots, super kicks, crazy stuff, Panama Sunrises or whatever the hell they're called,
Yeah.
Canadian Destroyers, it's not going to be your cup of tea. If you're into more high impact style, a little bit more grounded, and with a touch of realism, because he does have a legit background to him. So
I'll put a question out there to Cena Nation Dog then. So you don't like Karen Cross. Did you like Taz from ECW back in the day? Because their styles are very similar. Just let us know in the comments whether you thought it was sort of, if you like him or not.
And it's true because it's very similar. Silk Performance Center, apparently. Yeah. So the Capital Wrestling Center would be the spot. It kind of sucks for a takeover to be there. I kind of wish they would have done it in, where SmackDown would take place.
Yeah, it would be nice if they kind of did that. They want to be in front of more fans, but NXT at the moment is not in high regard, as we know. We will talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that one later. And with SummerSlam backup plans, kind of out there in the rumor mill, we come to this one. Thunderdome on the horizon. Are we making a visit back to the Thunderdome in the near distant future?
Yeah, I've got some good news. We're not, which is a really, real
Thank
positive.
God.
If we do go back to where they can't go to different venues, WWE will have one venue. The current plan at the moment is WWE will be based at the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas, every single week, but that will be with fans. So that's a real positive I heard today.
I might have to move to Houston if that's the case. Let's go to a show every week, except for Raw. But it'd be pretty interesting. I mean, like I said, I've said this before. If the states run a bit different, each state is governed by their own, by their governors. So each state is different. Some have different rules, some others don't. So if they're not able to go to more of the East Coast side or the West Coast side, down south seems like it's going to stay open. I mean, Florida and Texas over here seem to be there's going to be no lockdowns or anything like that. So I think they'll keep it like that. So I've always said if worst comes to worst, don't go back to the Thunderdome, just tour the southern parts of the U.S. and that's it. Just keep it that way. Really, you're going to make your money there anyways. Cousin Eric, drip drip, don't hate, rated R. I'm going to hate because it's not going to stick. Jonesy Chats Wrestling. I not watch ECW, so I not know if I like Taz style. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's go back and watch it. If you go back on Peacock and go check out some earlier Taz stuff, FTW champion Taz, all that stuff like that, him against Sabu, and just take a look at it because it's pretty similar. It has that same kind of grounded, realistic style to it.
It's gritty, I think's the correct word.
Yeah, I think so. I feel sorry for Bobby Fish. He is known as the weak link of the Undisputed Era. His release was WWE released, and his injuries prove it. Yeah, I mean, I always kind of thought it was either him or Roderick Strong were the two weak links out of the group. I guess, it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah, unfortunate.
So not seemingly no Thunderdome on the horizon. They seem like, from what Jonesy said, they'll tour one stadium and just stay there the whole time with fans. So that's good stuff. Number 5, update on the man, Becky Lynch.
Okay, so we do know she's due back. That's one of the big things WWE holding back. It's the biggest return of the year. At the moment, the expected update for her, she's expected around October, November. Maybe it's Survivor Series. That's what they're kind of doing. They're holding it back to them, which for me, it kind of makes sense. You've obviously had Sasha Banks return recently. You've had Goldberg come back. I think that's your big sort of return, if that makes sense. Like when she comes back, she's going to bring a lot of fans back to the product, I think. So I think it's sensible. I don't know how she'll fit at Survivor Series, though, in what capacity and where she goes, really.
Yeah, because it's always champion versus champion, brand versus brand. So where does she really fall in? Does she join the Survivor Series women's team? I don't really think that's much of an impact. Does she show up after the women's match, where whoever the SmackDown, whoever the Raw champion is that wins that match? Maybe she shows up and just confronts the winner of that match.
I think for me, if I was booking it, I think you've got to have Sasha beat Bianca at SummerSlam, and I think Sasha needs to go on a run. Really, Sasha needs to start bullying the women that are left, and then you could have Becky come out and then sort of be the big hero, if that makes sense. That would be an instant program that could be really good.
Yes, I think so as well. Roderick Strong is better than Bobby Fish. Yes, I would agree. I just kind of felt like always Roderick Strong has like no personality really he's more of like a Dean Malenko-esque type. I've always compared him to a Dean Malenko. And Bobby Fish is kind of the odd man out there. Doesn't really have anything that really stands out to him. Eric, I'm saying Bobby Fish, I think, is the oldest of the group with the way he looks. He is, correct. Right? Correct?
Yeah,
he's the oldest member of the group. Yeah. All right. I mean, like if Kyle O'Reilly wouldn't have went on to his own singles run, they probably just would have went back to a tag team or working together, something like that. I used to think Roderick Strong was better than Kyle O'Reilly, but ever since Kyle O'Reilly's single person, I think and like him better than Roderick Strong. Yes, he's overall better. He's more charismatic. Just like I said, Roderick Strong is Dean Malenko, just a newer version of Dean Malenko, pretty much. Yes, Fish has been more injury prone. Makes sense. Prone. Yeah, he has been injured a lot. Kavion, thank you for joining us, Kavion Martin. I don't think Becky's coming back to the Royal Rumble next year.
That'd be a good place for her to come back. Clearly, you need her back for WrestleMania. So, yeah, hold back. That'll be a great shout. I think number 30 could be fun, though, if he did that, Kavian.
Yes, I think it would be pretty cool. That's probably the best spot to bring people back because by default you're gonna get a pop regardless, whoever it is. All right, so with Becky Lynch, that's the update on Becky Lynch. Let's kick it over to this one. Reasons for Bray Wyatt's release.
Okay, so let's kind of break this down. So with Bray, there's a couple of things that's obviously been going on. So with Bray, obviously, he was off TV for many, many months. Many reasons and reports to why and stuff like that. But when we look at it, the key thing with Bray is he was due to come back. He was due to come back this month. He had a program already penciled. They've been working on for a while behind the scenes. Where it kind of fell on loggerheads was the fact the amount of time he had off and the money he's getting paid. That's kind of where the problem. Them two things together. If you're paying somebody a set amount of money and they're not on TV, they're not doing their job. That's kind of why he's getting that backlash from WWE. And because of the problems with creative, there's a massive falling out with creative. Like they would suggest stuff, he'd protest and stuff like that, allegedly, from what I've heard today. But that kind of explains why he's kind of gone. Obviously, Bray wasn't happy as well. Like obviously, clearly he'd been held back. He'd had a very traumatic year last year. Got two young kids as well that are like a year apart, if that makes sense. And being on the road all the time wasn't really for him, which I get that. I respect that totally.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough situation to be in. Everything that kind of went down. Obviously, the passing of his friend Brody Lee.
Yeah.
Then you had his children being born, being on the road. Tough not being around your kids, especially when they're that small. When they're older, it's maybe a little bit easier for him, but being that small, it's extremely tough. Obviously, issues with creative, that's a tale as old as time. There's been so many individuals that have had that kind of issue with creative and they just don't know what to do because creative is just so difficult to deal with sometimes, especially with the massive writing crew that both shows have. Alyssa Stansbury, thank you for joining us. Alyssa can't stand Seth Rollins' character. He needs to change, wants Seth not top brand hate music.
Yeah, Seth's in a quiet taste. Like he's a bit stuck, isn't he, between Tweener? He's never really been the same ever since he faced the Fiend. But great in ring. But yeah, he's not gone to the levels of Roman Reigns. Unfortunately, he's never really kicked on to that main babyface main eventer as such.
You know what it was? His first run, obviously, after he won Money in the Bank, his first time after leaving the Shield, turning heel on the Shield, and winning the title, and his run with the title. And when he beat John Cena at Summerslam, became double champ. I thought that was his best work. I don't think he's ever gotten back to that level. He's cool now. I think it's more of just his drip, the way he dresses. I think it's more cool than anything else.
It's the gimmick more than anything. Yes. I think he struggles with. But let's be fair, he's much more comfortable as a heel. He's not a fun baby face. He doesn't really want to get the fans behind him as such. But I agree, like that wave and cashing winning the briefcase. He's never had that swami arrogance. He's kind of stuck between a bit more of an over Miz, if that makes sense. He's kind of the Miz level in that respect in terms of he's got the talent and stuff like that, but his gimmick is just really painful. So whoever he faces is always kind of not going to be particularly fun, but him versus Edge will be good. Like just ignore the character, get work.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that as well. It's just, it's like he just never took off, right? I think the injury when he got hurt, when he tore his ACL, when he was champion that first time, it just stalled everything. He just never really got back to what it was.
I agree.
Yeah. Not only that Becky Lynch needs to come back, but need Dana Brooke, who is hinting at a return. And Asuka needs to return because she's in Florida, as evidence of her recent YouTube video this week.
I think hopefully we'll get this SummerSlam card done, then we'll get some of the returns. Dana Brooke's one I worry for, though. That's another one where Mandy Rose is gone now. Dana Brooke, what are they going to do with her? For instance, that's somebody they're not going to get behind. They're not really pushing as such. But Asuka, that's a strange one that's missing from Raw at the moment, but she needs a break, so it's sensible what they're doing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Dana Brooke is just like, she's the odd person out. She's like like a Bobby Fish type of situation.
Yeah.
The group breaks up. What do you do with her? She could be the next in the next line of cuts that we see coming forward.
Yeah.
Kyle O'Reilly didn't get to show much, a lot in the Undisputed Era because Adam Cole is the main guy. Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. You have a main guy in the crew. Everybody out of the faction is supposed to end up getting better, but that never really does happen.
I think it's really tough when you've got so many people that are talented in a faction, and it's very rare that everybody's going to get over in the faction, if that makes sense. Kyle O'Reilly is always a good number 2, but is he a good number 1? That's the thing. He's got the talent and the ability, but it's the next step. Has he got that extra edge to really be a WWE champion long term? That's kind of what's holding it back, really.
Yeah, that's definitely what it is there. It's tough because you got 4 guys, like not all 4 of them could be something afterwards. It's just tough. Hopefully you can get 2 of them. And they seemingly have 2 with Kyle O'Reilly, but can he get to that next level and win a title and be a main guy? Alyssa Stansbury, thinks Sasha Banks overrated. Not great. Mike, don't see difference her heel or babyface. Always title pictures like Charlotte.
I think it's another one when you break it down to what these people are earning. Like I think a lot of it, WWE obviously clearly want to get the money's worth of it. Yes. So if they're paying these 2 wrestlers, the 2 wrestlers that she said, then that's obviously kind of why they're getting pushed. But for me, if Sasha has got a lot of talent, like she may not be to everyone's cup of tea, but as a heel, she's far more fun. Like babyface doesn't really work for me. I'd agree with that comment. But what do you think? What's your kind of thoughts?
For me, better as a heel. Seems to be more comfortable as a heel, natural heel.
Yeah.
I always call back to the stuff when she had her issues with Bayley in NXT, and she would mess around with the fan that was Bayley's fan, always in the front row. That was great stuff. I mean, that's when you get like especially the kids involved, you make them cry. If you're a heel, that's what you want. You want that kind of attention and stuff like that. So I think she's better there. Her heel and babyface is kind of similar. In the way she kind of acts, except she's just not as nasty. But she just smiles a lot. I think she just needs to be a heel, be just the mean, nasty Sasha Banks, what she needs.
I think she needs to be arrogant. So when the fans are there, if they go to try and give her their hand or something, don't touch me. It needs to be kind of like I'm better than you, etc., etc. It's a bit like I would love to see like a modern day version of Mr. Perfect, but a female equivalent. If she could pull that off, the arrogant side of it, definitely.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. She needs to stay arrogant, stay like that, and just stay cocky and keep doing her thing that way. All right, next thing, the Fiends would be SummerSlam opponent.
Okay, so what they were working on as of July, before these releases were discussed and stuff like that, the original plan they pitched to Bray Wyatt was a match against Bobby Lashley. That sounds good on paper. They were struggling for people, hence why Goldberg was brought in. They were panicking, obviously. But the minute Bray found out that he was losing, that he wasn't going to win the belt, and it was a feud to come back and lose again following his loss to Randy Orton at WrestleMania, he didn't want to come back, and that's kind of why they kiboshed that, basically.
Yeah, I mean, him versus Bobby Lashley would have been a lot more appealing than Goldberg versus Bobby Lashley, but again, the Fiend cannot really lose that.
I don't think it would have been the Fiend. I think it would just been Bray.
Just Bray Wyatt. Okay.
Yeah.
But then you would have to run. You would have to run the Fiend afterwards, then, right?
Maybe
logically. I mean, yeah, it's the problem.
I think they want the Fiend to be forgot of. Like obviously now they want him to be forgot, but at the time I think they want to try. What they realize is the minute they put somebody against the Fiend, based on history, he can't lose. So they get put in a corner. So the Fiend obviously beats everybody generally, besides Goldberg and a few others.
Well, that's the same thing with Finn Balor and the Demon. He beats everybody, right? So it's like you're always working towards. So every feud he's in, he seems to be always working towards the Demon, because that's his thing, right? That's his alter ego that beats everybody. It's undefeated. So it's kind of you paint yourself into a corner. You put yourself in a box as to how much you can do with it. Because again, in the end, you're just working to that main spot where he's the main guy supposed to beat him. That's the problem when you have different like double characters. With one is like extremely dominant, and the other one is kind of like just run of the mill average.
I agree with you 100%. I think the thing with it would have been fun to see. I think I'd much rather seen that match instead of like the Goldberg match we're going to be seeing. But it's a shame. I do get why Bray kind of went against it. But it would have been an interesting program to see. I think I'd love to see the build to it.
Yeah, it would have been cool. I'm still holding out hope that it's just a minor or a small separation between Bray Wyatt and WWE, and he'll eventually come back. I can't see him anywhere else. I don't know if he will go anywhere else, completely changing his entire character. I mean, I know he's capable of it, very creative guy, but I'm still holding out hope that I think it's just a short-term separation.
I think the key thing with that is if Bray's willing to let WWE be in control of the creative rather than himself. I think that's what it kind of comes down to, and just whether he wants to wrestle. That's the thing. If he's sort of got issues and stuff like that, it would only be right if he wants to come back. I don't think he should be not forced to come back, but I don't think he should come back unless he's truly there to be wrestling every single month, basically.
Yeah, I think he just needs to take his time off, away from wrestling, come back, and then just come back to WWE and have a massive comeback. Yeah. Interesting comment here. The weak link of the Shield was Jon Moxley, Dean Ambrose. The weak link of the New Day is Xavier Woods. The weak link of the Four Horsewomen is Bayley.
Controversial. Like, I think we look at like this. Jon Moxley. I don't know. I think Jon Moxley is as good as Seth. Like I think so. That's questionable, really. But Xavier Woods. I think Xavier is as good as Kofi. Maybe questionable. I think Xavier's recent work, like this year, has been pretty good. And in terms of the Four Horsewomen, Bayley. I think Bayley's better than Becky Lynch. I've got to be honest with you. If you ignore the character work and stuff like the actual in-ring ability, like I think Bayley's far better than Becky Lynch. Although Becky Lynch is much more over. She's incredibly more over than Bayley. I don't know what you think at that point.
Like if I'm taking it as like the weak link being just in terms of star power, who comes out the biggest star out of it, I thought Dean Ambrose was a massive star. Or he could have been a massive star if he just wasn't so. If WWE didn't like bury it into the ground,
they put him in awful solutions. Like they put him in that match against Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, where he had no chance in hell. He went from challenging like for the title the month before, like I think it was Roadblock, and then the next month after, he then is obviously against Brock Lesnar, the man that can't lose. It's just stupid. But
it was a really good run for him, right? So he takes on Triple H at Roadblock, right? Or no, he's at the Rumble. People are cheering for him to win the title in that Rumble match. Triple H wins. He faces Triple H the next month at Roadblock, loses, but it's a massive reaction. Then has the match against Lesnar, which we all thought was going to be crazy. We didn't get it. Now, again, for me, Dean Ambrose, I was a big Dean Ambrose fan. I thought the weakest, and during the Shield days, I thought the weak link out of the group was going to end up being Seth Rollins. I felt like Dean and Roman were going to be the two stars coming out of it, and Seth Rollins would be kind of just the guy who's just there in the mid card. Obviously, that switch. Dean Ambrose, for me, if he would have been a more serious character and they just didn't just ram it down your throat that he's the lunatic fringe. He does the stupid slingshot clothesline. He has these weird looking punches and kicks, and he looks odd in the ring. They didn't bank so much on that and force him to do that nonstop. The stuff with the mustard and the ketchup, it's just corny.
They put him like the village idiot there. That's the thing. WWE kind of booked him like the village idiot.
Yes. That's what it was. It's the way WWE booked him. It's just terrible stuff, and that's why he ended up being Xavier Woods. I understand that because obviously what Kofi's done previously before the New Day and after in the New Day, and then obviously Big E now and what he did before. Xavier just really never had much of a singles run before getting into the New Day, so he's obviously the weakest link in that part in terms of star power. Bayley, yes, by de facto she is, because Charlotte, massive star, Sasha Banks, massive star, Becky Lynch, massively over at that point of the man stuff. Bayley's just kind of there. Not saying that she hasn't done a ton and is not massively over, but just not to the level of the other three. That's pretty much it, I think, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. Spot on.
I like the Seth Rollins Messiah gimmick better than the drip gimmick. His new one makes me bored. I did like the Messiah gimmick. I felt like they should have went harder with the cult gimmick that he had going on there. I think it would have been better off for him.
He's got the charisma to pull any of these gimmicks off. It's just the way that in this PG era, when they're not allowed to do things like that properly, like the Messiah gimmick and stuff like that. If you go back to the Truth Commission, the Jackal, Don Callis in AEW, for anyone who doesn't know that, like back in '97, he was like radical and doing this David Koresh type thing. You just wouldn't see that type of gimmick in WWE now, which is probably
the little diamond on his head, and stuff like that. Yeah. Good stuff. Charlotte Flair and Sasha Banks are the best members of the Four Horsewomen. The most over. I mean, the most star power popular. Yeah, probably. And then Becky Lynch is like up there with them. She just doesn't have the longest run as like Charlotte and Sasha do.
No.
Sasha will be a great babyface, but give her a different gimmick. The boss gimmick doesn't work as babyface, and it gives you Michael Cole always saying it's boss time all the time. So that's another drawback to her being a babyface.
Yeah, it's tough. I think her as a babyface, she has got that sort of, the fans will get behind her to a certain point and stuff like that. But for me, as you said, she's much more comfortable as a heel.
Yep. C Nation Dog is my favorite series by far on this channel. Keep doing it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. This is all Jonesy's idea, so say thank you to him. My channel. It's good stuff. Listen, Stansbury, do you think wrestlers who comfortable heel miss babyface in wrestler? Sorry, I'm confused.
Do you think wrestlers are too comfortable as heels and then are not as good as baby faces? I take that as.
I think that's what it is. Yeah.
I think in terms of that, it depends on who they are. If you're a good wrestler and you've got the charisma, you should be able to pull off either. But a lot of that's down to the booking and storylines you're given. If you're given a turn with no history and no backup to support that turn, that's kind of where they struggle, probably, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, some people are just naturally heels. It's tough to be a natural babyface because there's stuff to like a natural babyface. It's a tough thing to do. Because sometimes you just come off so hokey when heels just come off as cool. You basically got to blame the NWO for this whole kind of thing. They made heels cool, so they kind of ruined everything for everybody else.
Yeah, I think that, and I think the fact the thing, the heels aren't dastardly. They're not devious anymore. They're just literally, I'll attack you after the bell. They don't injure the person after the bell. You know what I mean? There's no real reason. It's not like a friend turning on somebody, but a classic reason of that is Dakota Kai turning on Raquel Gonzalez recently. That was a really good heel turn. That's kind of the things I like.
Yeah, they're not dastardly enough, not evil enough. Yeah, there's no evil heels. It's just a bunch of like guys who they just do a lot of I beat you up and that's it. All right, so Xavier Woods is the reason why New Day was a success. Yes, he seems to be the mastermind behind that whole thing and what they do. Yeah,
I agree.
List of rumor more going to be released coming soon. Yes.
Yeah, I think that. I think it's sort of, obviously we're going through this very interesting period with WWE where unfortunately they're cutting all costs, and there is something I can say. Actually, I'll put this out there. I didn't put it actually on our plan before what we can talk about, but I'll put it out there now to you, Anthony. WWE have actually got there's a loophole WWE can use to actually fire most of the roster. Like WWE originally basically requested all their wrestlers work so many days a year, and obviously last year WWE basically expected wrestlers to work 120 dates. Like everybody apart from Brock Lesnar and Edge, where the contract dictates that. Any wrestlers that haven't worked 120 days. Legally, WWE can fire them. There's no real recourse for that. There's no rule. WWE can't be sued or anything because of that.
Yeah, I mean, always check your contract in the end. Always have lawyers, like 7 lawyers, check out your contracts. Make sure it's ironclad, because that's the kind of stuff that happens. To be honest with you, Seth Rollins is going to be the weak link of the Shield, but he's a Triple H guy. Or Shawn Michaels guy probably too.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, that's the thing. All right, so that's the Fiends would be SummerSlam opponent. It was supposed to be Bobby Lashley, but obviously things have changed. But sticking with the Fiend, what is the Cult of Windham?
Okay, so the Kult of Windham, this is something that Bray Wyatt's been teasing kind of all week on Twitter and stuff like that. Early thoughts of it, if it happens, it's going to be Eric Redbeard. It's also going to be ex-members of the Wyatt family. So you're going to get Bo Dallas and people like that. For me, it could be fun. I want to see it go to sort of AEW or Impact Wrestling, really. I really hope it goes somewhere where they can push the envelope. But it'll be interesting to see if it happens, if they actually do it. But this is what Bray's been kind of teasing. He wanted to bring it to WWE originally, apparently, but they vetoed that idea, supposedly.
Yeah, I mean, I was on Reddit and a lot of people were telling me it was just a podcast idea he was talking about. So I'm not sure. That seems more plausible what you're saying of like a faction, because I've seen like the Braun Strowman stuff and obviously Eric Redbeard, Eric Rowan. It makes a lot of sense for him to create that. All those guys I don't think are signed anywhere. I don't think Eric Rowan signed anywhere, correct?
No.
So yeah, I just don't want to see these guys go to AEW because they have a million people in that roster.
They have a lot of stables already. Like, I don't know how a Supernatural stable would last. Obviously, when we had Brandy Rhodes versus Supernatural stable, it didn't work. So I think it could probably struggle. Like, Bray obviously can't be the Fiend. He can't say he's Bray. He'll have to have a name change and stuff like that. But could be fun. If it was a podcast, though, as you said, that could be fun as well. Bray on a podcast would be great.
Now, funny you brought up that Brandy Rhodes thing. That's one of the most WWE things AEW's ever done, where they pushed a storyline that just was so bad that wasn't working. They just axed it the next 1 week and it just disappeared. Very just like fell off the face of the earth type of WWE thing where they just axe the storyline. You just act like it never happened. That was that Brandy Rhodes weird. I don't remember what it was called, but it was pretty bad.
It was the quickest heel and babyface turn ever.
Yes, exactly, right?
The same episode, basically.
C Nation Dog, unpopular opinion. WWE in 2020 is underrated. The 2020 year of WWE in the Thunderdome and in the Performance Center, it actually is pretty underrated. It was actually some well done spots. A lot of cinematic stuff was really well done. And you got to focus a lot more on the in-ring. And it performed in terms of in-ring. Not all the storytelling was great, but the in-ring stuff is really where WWE started to take it to the next level in in-ring.
I agree. I think the in-ring work was great. I think without a crowd, it was really good to see how they adapt. And there was good potential in some of the storylines. Stuff like Raw Underground and Retribution could have been good. The early work wasn't too bad. It's just the final product that basically hinders it. If we watch wrestling for the matches, it's fine. But if you want any sort of storyline, like you go to the movie, say you go and watch Suicide Squad at the cinema, if you're watching it and there's no real ending, there's no end to the plot, you're just watching people fighting, it's a bit pointless, really, which is probably why we struggle with WWE these days sometimes.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Yeah, that's the problem. It's just this Silk with the fun. Cult of Windham is a pyramid scheme. I mean, it might be. He might be selling you something and try to get somebody else to sell it for you. It's the whole.
He sold a lot of merchandise. Like Bray Wyatt apparently sold like $3 million worth of merchandise a year. Like, and they were paying him $1 million, apparently, supposedly, allegedly. So crazy to release him. Though this is a guy that obviously clearly was very creative and stuff like that. But I'd love to see him back in WWE. But let him be Bray. Let him actually let him create stuff rather than be restricted.
Yeah, it's interesting that like a merchandise mover like that will get released. It's pretty wild when WWE makes majority of the profit off the merchandise, not the guy actually. So it's an interesting concept there how that really worked out. But sticking with the meat and potatoes of the show, we finally got number 9, the NXT roster cut. So it happened last night during SmackDown or after SmackDown. A lot of guys from NXT and women, guys and girls, got eliminated, released from NXT. One of them being Bobby Fish, one of them being Mercedes Martinez, one of them being Tyler Rust, who was literally on this week's episode of NXT, part of the Diamond Mine, a new faction that seems to be, I guess, done with. They're probably gonna repackage it or add somebody else to it. And Bronson Reed, the former North American champion, Leon Ruff, another former North American champion. It's interesting stuff. You had Bronson Reed seemingly looking like he was gonna go to the main roster after losing to Isaiah Swerve Scott and not being on NXT for a couple weeks. I don't know. It's an interesting turn of events.
It's a real shame. Like, I think you look at this, like, as you said, Bronson Reed, he was one I was sure was coming up. He's done a lot of dark matches. He had a great run with the North American title. He had a good look. He's kind of a big man. You'd have thought they'd do that. Very, very stupid. But then when we look at the other people as well, like, as you said, the Diamond Mine, Tyler Rust, obviously, why would you launch a new stable then release the guy? A couple weeks later, it seems absolutely crazy. And then you look at a few of the other people that we got there. We've obviously got Bobby Fish. Bobby Fish obviously was injury prone, always looked at as a tag team wrestler, never looked at somebody who could do it on a singles capacity. That was a real shame. What's kind of interesting, obviously I know we'll talk about it later, is the fact that you're releasing Bobby Fish and Adam Cole. You're trying to get Adam Cole to come back. what is kind of the logic there? Is this something like you just sort of they don't really think about it? And then let's look at the kind of other people we got there as well. We got Jake Atlas. Jake Atlas, he was one that was very over supposedly. He did this undercover boss episode where Stephanie McMahon was really preaching him, saying we're going to make you sort of really high up in WWE. Never really kind of did it. And there's just loads of others. This is just a real mess, unfortunately. Them releasing people, and it just shows that NXT at the moment is just the developmental territory. It's not really a serious brand. Ever since they lost the ratings war to AEW, the whole interest in NXT's gone. I think from the office onwards, looking down basically.
Yeah, I would agree with you. That seems to be the turning point in all this was the loss to AEW. The fact that they just couldn't compete with AEW. Which why would you ever think they pretty much could? I don't know. That was the choice by WWE to compete head to head with AEW. That was on them. So I have no idea how they're going to work this out. It doesn't make a ton of sense how that's going to work. Let's get to the comments. Here we go. Talking of merch, Nikki ASH has been champ for 3 weeks and has no new merch.
Wow, that's a first. Let's see what happens. Like, I'm shocked at that. Like, I would have thought that they would be pushing that, but I know the fans have been booing. Unfortunately, some of the fans have been booing, so I don't know if that's a general consensus, but I don't know what merch. Maybe when she loses the belt at SummerSlam, perhaps they'll give her some sort of merch then. That would be kind of probably unlogical, but that's probably what they'll do.
She might get merch leading up, like at SummerSlam, they debut her merch. Like it's probably gonna be a bunch of butterfly T-shirts because that seems to be her logo, and that maybe some like corny little phrase on it or something like that. So that I can see coming from it. At least Bronson Reed got to face Adam Cole in his final match.
That's true. You got to do that, but then that's the thing. Like if you're, I don't know how you go from being a tryout on like the main roster and then just being released. It's just absolutely sort of crazy, like to do that. It just shows nobody in NXT is safe at all.
And it's not like he was making a ton of money either. He's probably not making that like ton compared to everybody else. Silk, 2 of these guys only signed in January.
Yeah, that's just absolutely nuts. I know that quite a few people weren't there very long. Obviously, Asher Howe, I believe he's talking about, and there's another one as well. When we look at this, there's people such as Leon Ruff as well that have gone. He was North American champion, and just generally, what does this say to NXT? Like nobody is safe, which. Why do you want to promote that? I think a lot of this is going down to age. Like NXT now, they want to look at it as a developmental territory. It's not really going to be a second brand. It's just there to bring people that are of a certain age. If you're over a certain age and you've not made it to WWE, there's no real money in that.
Yeah, definitely.
That's kind of what I look at it.
It's a sad thing. How do all these talented wrestlers get released while we still have Nia Jax and Eva Marie?
I think politics, like Eva Marie, I can only believe she's got a social media following that must be the reason why she's still there. But Nia Jax, it's family as such, but it's all to do with politics, and it's just down to it. I think Vince McMahon, if you asked him, I don't think he knows half the people on the NXT roster. I'd go as far to say that statement.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think he doesn't know anybody on there either, minus like Adam Cole and Karrion Kross.
He's only just met Adam Cole.
There you go. So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, like, you know, it's a rough thing. It's like they're the same company, but sometimes it just feels like they aren't.
I think the general film with NXT, the buzz has kind of gone ever since they went onto TV. Like I think them going onto TV and being out every single week for their show has really taken away from the takeovers. The takeovers don't seem as magical when we get to a takeover because of it's very much very sort of WWE-esque, if that makes sense, because they've sort of mucked things up.
Yeah, because then leaving the network, because them on the network felt different than because when them coming to TV, it felt like it was just more WWE. But them on the network felt like something separate. It felt like something different. It felt like more of an alternative view and was kind of the same. It's a different feeling you got from it. Still, can you guys give me the moment when NXT dies? Sorry, when it died.
When it died, I think the minute they lost the ratings war, the minute they started going head to head with AEW, the minute that people such as Keith Lee as a champion gets called up and then gets treated crap, the minute Karrion Kross this past 2 or 3 weeks has come up and looked crap. That's the thing. They've continually lost wrestlers. NXT always lose the wrestlers to WWE, and then WWE do a worse job generally. The general gist of it is WWE make these wrestlers look like from $1 million just to everybody else on the roster. There's no difference.
Yeah, we've seen it with so many guys before, and we'll continue to see it in the future. The most recently being Karrion Kross, how he's booked as a monster on NXT, still in a feud where he's seemingly supposed to be a monster, but he's out there on Monday nights losing matches, and not being important whatsoever. It makes no sense whatsoever. We haven't seen Scarlett in weeks. We haven't seen his whole entrance and his whole gimmick in weeks. It's weird stuff. But leads me to the next thing. The winds of change come for NXT, and that comes because these roster cuts seemingly are part of a big change coming to NXT. They even talk about changing the logo, talking about just making it all focused on just young talent coming to the Performance Center, working on their craft, being young, and then getting ready for the main roster. No longer will we see the important of takeovers, just like Jonesy said before. This seemingly all stems from the loss against AEW and the Wednesday Night Wars. A loss that was self-inflicted because WWE decided to do it. Nobody forced them to do it. And this is what we're getting. So it's seemingly like I feel bad for Triple H. I don't know if he's in on this, if he's cool with it, or if it's just being forced upon him. But it seems to me that they don't care about NXT anymore. They want to change it up. They want to make it into a feeder system again, basically Ohio Valley Wrestling 2.0, or Florida Championship Wrestling 2.0, and just leave it that way. No more of the cool NXT. We're just gonna get the minor leagues again, and it no longer will be even brought up to face them on Survivor Series. You won't see any of that stuff anymore. You'll just see just some guys you have no idea who they are out there, and just a shell of what NXT used to be.
I'm a fan of talent going there that's unknown, but there's got to be an end game to this talent. If there's people going there, how can we get the next Roman Reigns, the next John Cena? If these guys go to NXT and never ever make it and beat anybody substantial on the main roster, it's just a real strange way of doing things, really. I think the thing with it, I don't know how this will kind of work with the USA Network deal. Like, I think that's still going to be there. They're still going to be on USA Network, if that makes sense. But yeah. Would you be a fan of them sort of going back to what they originally used to do? They used to have like a coach mentor the wrestlers. Do you think we could see that again, or something different?
What we did in the beginning with like the Miz coaching Wade Barrett?
Well, yeah, sort of, but you wouldn't put the Miz obviously, but you'd maybe put somebody substantial, give them that rub.
No, I just think anything from where if they do anything different from where they're at now, like completely like that, I think it makes it even worse, to be honest with you, because we're just so conditioned to know what NXT is and be excited for takeovers and know that takeovers are cool and all that. And it's just, if you take that away and you kind of go all the way back to something like that, or you change it up way too much, I just think it's a disaster.
I think the thing is, Triple H, you've got to be looking at this thinking, what have I done? What have I wasted my time for the last however many years? And looking at people in NXT, such as you brought back Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe's probably your next NXT champion. He's not a young guy. Like, I'm a massive fan of Samoa Joe coming back. So this is going to be a mixture of veterans with these lower talents. It's just going to be an interesting mess, really.
And I know the whole purpose of him creating NXT was to create a minor league feeder system for the main roster. And that's the general consensus of what NXT actually is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a place where you bring in, recruit, you train, you find your stars, you build your stars. It may not be the smartest way to do it because, you're not really having them travel, go and seeing other crowds, developing different styles of performing and all that stuff like that. Just like the territory days where everybody had to go to different towns and find a way to get over in each town. It's different ways of doing it, but it is what it is. Now it's just seemingly just it's just going to go revert back to what it was, a feeder. And then it seemed to be like, that's what the goal was, for it to be just a feeder, but they caught lightning in a bottle and it ended up being something bigger. And then now, since they lost the war, the so-called war against AEW, it gave Vince McMahon all the reason to kind of say, okay, you caught lightning in a bottle, but now it's over.
I think the way Vince looks at it is, if these people are over 30, this is money I could put in my back pocket and save, which is really sad. And the days have gone of stockpiling wrestlers. Gone are the days of we'll ever take over where there's a new wrestler in the crowd.
It's interesting because they stockpiled at the time they stockpiled wrestlers. They had absolutely no competition whatsoever. Now they have AEW, which again, they don't recognize as competition whatsoever, nor should they at this point. But still, there's something else out there where these guys are going to go and be on TV. Now, I always like to put my tinfoil hat on, and I always like to come up with this one conspiracy theory. Could they, maybe they're not working with AEW directly, but could the plan from Nick Khan and WWE and Vince McMahon be, okay, why are we wasting our money on these guys when we can just drop them? They go somewhere. Immediately when we release them, they become more popular. Immediately, right? Because they feel like we've slighted them. The fans are gonna feel like we're garbage, we're douchebags, and we slighted these guys. We treat these guys like garbage, and we just got rid of them. They leave more popular. They go, they re-debut somewhere else. They become even more popular. They get re-ingratiated with the fans of the independent scene. People love them again. Oh, this and that. Boom, we snatch them back up, and they're more valuable to us now than they were when we released them.
I think that's a great shout. The thing is, clearly they are going to release people. If these people go to AEW and they're stars, there is going to be a war between AEW and WWE as the years go on. The gap is obviously huge. I get that. But let's look at it like this, Anthony. When we go back to when they were stockpiling wrestlers, they wanted to set up these territories across the world. There'd be an NXT Mexico, NXT wherever. The fact they've not done this, we've only got NXT UK. That's kind of probably why they're now having to release some of these talents.
And I don't think they're not making money really off of NXT UK. Right,
probably
currently,
not.
Yeah,
it's on BT Sport here. BT Sport's not really a free channel; it's a cable channel. It's limited subscription, stuff like that, and it's an afterthought. It's on a Thursday. It's not really well advertised and stuff like that. It's not in a prime time. We don't even hear it mentioned on Raw really ever.
Yeah,
I don't think
so. It kind of is what it is. But I generally tend to think that there is something else, I guess, more nefarious going on here, and they're just trying to manipulate all this stuff.
It's a sad but interesting time. I think it's interesting for us as fans. I don't like seeing people lose their jobs. I want to be clear of that, but it's getting crazier and crazier as the weeks go on.
Yeah. It weighs right as Tommaso and Johnny were about to finish their feud, and Vince called them up and tagged them together when they were supposed to be bitter enemies. Yes, whatever applies in NXT, it's like alternate universes. It's like a multiverse, basically.
If we go back to, I remember going back to sort of 1998, that you used to have these territories. You used to have like Memphis Power Pro Wrestling. You'd have people like Kurt Angle there. You'd have other people that were there. They went there and got seasoned. But the fact this is WWE television and you're advertising NXT as a brand, it should be continuity. It should be consistent the whole way through. If you're calling somebody up from NXT, everybody should know who they are already. Which you're going to lose that if you're just going to get rid of all the veterans and legends that are there and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I don't understand if there's a renewed focus on young talent, then what happens with Gargano, Ciampa, Kyle O'Reilly, Kushida, etc.
I think Ciampa's in trouble. Like, I don't want to sort of speculate or anything. I'd be surprised. I think he could be in trouble. Like the fact that these people haven't made it to the roster from no fault of their own. How long does WWE want? WWE obviously needs some wrestlers there as mentors to a certain point, but for me, I think it's a shame. Really, I think the fact is a lot of all the wrestlers you named, all of them would be great on Raw if they were given the chance.
Yeah, I would say out of those four, I think all four of them are in trouble. I think Gargano's in trouble. I don't think, I think just if you look at him physically, it's just not a guy Vince McMahon wants to put on his television program. Ciampa is really, an interesting looking guy character wise and everything like that. Pretty interesting there. So maybe he has a chance. Kyle O'Reilly, I don't think Vince sees anything in him whatsoever if you look at him. And Kushida, he just doesn't like to push guys that aren't really, very fluent in English.
It's a language, as you said. It's somebody that can't cut a promo and stuff like that from no fault of his own, and Vince hasn't got patience for that generally.
Yeah, exactly. I got something interesting going on right here. Let me go back to this. Wilson Rosario, keep putting in the work and making that kind with a $10 donation. Wilson, I appreciate you, brother. I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Always awesome for you to do that, man. It's good stuff. Thank you again, brother. Silk, what do you think will happen to NXT UK? I think NXT UK will be axed within the next 6 months.
It depends on the TV deal. The thing is, they're losing the champion probably. If Walter loses Dragunov,
yeah,
it's all down to Walter and his family. Walter's obviously got a family. If he can manage to convince them to move, then he'll be on the main roster. Surely he'll be on main NXT, I'd have thought.
Yeah, I totally agree. I am shocked Roman Reigns was in NXT but never held NXT champion. Yeah, that guy was just like, this guy's a star. We got to grid him up there as soon as possible.
Definitely.
Wrestlers should not go back to NXT. Once you get the call up to the main roster, you stay there. Yeah, and generally speaking, you shouldn't, right? But I mean, it happens in sports when you underperform. You just go back to the minors, and you kind of just try to rediscover yourself and then get back.
I don't think they move people enough back to NXT. That's what I think.
Yes,
generally, the amount
they
of
should
people
do it more.
Not even been. But look at Damian Priest since WrestleMania. Besides this recent month, for months he's done nothing. Like they should be putting him back in NXT if he's not going to do anything.
Yeah,
at least get TV time. Same with Ricochet.
It makes more sense, right? When you have guys, you call guys up and onto your team, and you just like, okay, you're okay, but you need more time down the minors. Let's put you back down there and bring you back up. Guys go back and forth all the time. Yeah, you're right. They should do it more often. The first ever NXT Tag Team Champions were Neville and Oliver Gray, and no one remembers that tag team.
I remember them. Oliver Gray's Joel Redman. He used to live actually quite near where I used to live, actually, and he had a tryout for TNA as well. Great guy. Should have really got a push. Never really got it. Due to go up on the main roster they were, and then he got injured, unfortunately. But great guy, great talent. It was a great team, actually.
Yeah, neither of those guys are in WWE anymore. It's interesting stuff how these guys don't really last the test of time in WWE. I've heard rumors that they may sell it in 2024 before the TV deal ends. It all needs renewing.
We'll see. I think there's got to be something going on. They can't keep sort of releasing these wrestlers. What is the point of the budget cuts? They don't need to save money unless it's for a sale.
It sucks when McMahon doesn't push someone just because they're from different country because they can't speak English. Yeah, it's tough because you can't really put them on like a Good Morning America or an ESPN because, what do you do at that point? You have to have an interpreter or it's tough. I mean, it's a tough thing to do. I know you do it in sports. Like if you watch baseball, a lot of the Hispanic players in baseball don't speak English, so they have interpreters and stuff like that. But when you bring them on, you don't see a lot of them on ESPN, Sports Center and stuff like that. That's the reason. It's just to be able to communicate on television in terms of in an interview process. It's kind of tough.
I agree.
All right. So number 11 is Pete Dunne leaving.
Interesting. This has obviously been a very interesting kind of week. Really shocking to hear his kind of contracts up as well. That's another one that's sort of come from nowhere. When we look at kind of Pete Dunne, this is a Pete Dunne really that's sort of, he's been doing some fantastic work. One of the main stalwarts in sort of NXT. Obviously, his contract's either up on the 31st of August or the 1st of September. For me, I think he's not going. I think he'll stay. I think he deserves better. He's another one that should be on the main roster now. This is a guy that he's one of the best wrestlers coming out of Britain, so I'm a massive advocate of him. I think he's really, really good. He's another one that Vince doesn't look at as probably like somebody that can make it to the main event, which is unfortunate, despite being main event on loads of takeovers and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how this guy, he was NXT UK champion, right? Seemingly like I didn't think he would come to NXT for an extended period of time, but we got him at NXT for an extended period of time, and he's really performed really well. Will he be? I mean, he hasn't been NXT champion yet. Does he have time still to get to it? I think he resigns as well. I just don't see what else he's gonna do. Like,
I don't think he'll go AEW. AEW have got so many good wrestlers; they can't afford to have Pete Dunne. When we look at it, if you look at Pete Dunne, let's compare him to Tyler Bate. Tyler Bate was another fantastic wrestler. Where is he? He's nowhere. Pete Dunne is at least on NXT. But for me, Stranger contract's kind of running up. It seems a really strange decision, but I think he'll resign, and I think he'll be still on NXT. I don't think he'll go up to the main roster
unless WWE wants him to leave to get better, become a little bit more famous, and then come back. That's, you know, it's just plausibly financially it makes more sense, because why am I could if I save this money now, I can make tenfold later on if he's a bigger star when I get him back. Because the same thing happened to Drew McIntyre. You know, Drew McIntyre,
if they want to come back though.
That's it. Yeah,
it's dangerous. Dangerous. I think
that's the problem. Do they want to come back? But in the end, they always do. I mean, to be honest with you, because it is like the major leagues. Like, this is where you're gonna get most exposure. I mean, you're gonna be on Good Morning America. You're gonna be on ESPN if you're like the main guy or main girl. It's, you know, that happens. It's part of it. It comes part of it. Everybody knows where the top upper echelon is of wrestling in the mainstream, and it's WWE.
I agree. I think the thing is, you've either got to ask yourself: do you either go? Is it either a business or is it a passion? Are you a WWE fan at heart? So you're just part of being treated lousily, or is it a business where you'll go if AEW give you, I don't know, double, you'll go there?
Well, that's the thing, because like now it seems to be everybody's more artistically passionate about wrestling, when it's not. They don't treat it as much as a business as they used to. Personally, that's the way I see it. I don't know the inside workings of it, but for me, I see like the older generations are way more business oriented, and like I'm make sure I protect mine and protect my spot. Where these guys seem to be more just they seem to be more care about the artistry of it, rather like the, you know, artistic work of the wrestling.
You look at soccer, for example, football. You look at players like Lionel Messi. Lionel Messi is an example. For example, he was going to stay at Barcelona.
Yep.
They didn't offer him enough. They couldn't pay what he did. Now he's going to go to PSG. It's a business. This is what most wrestlers must look at as a business. It's their income. If you could get paid double, you're going to do something, unless you've got very good loyalty to WWE.
That's the thing. So it's like in the inverse of that, like if you're in AEW, you're making a name for yourself. Do you take the big contract in WWE if AEW?
I think WWE are going to hit AEW hard. I honestly think that they will get some of the AEW talent when the chances are there. I'd be very surprised if it's. I don't know who they may get, but I can certainly see them going to get somebody off AEW, particularly if they need to get. Say they're back to touring every single month, they need wrestlers. Particularly if they're going to kibosh NXT and stuff, they will need to get wrestlers from somewhere. The fact these wrestlers are already known on AEW, they can hurt AEW by getting the wrestlers. It's what Vince McMahon does when he's under attack.
Yes, I mean that's if he's under attack, because I still think
he's not really under attack.
But I'm saying I think they're actually working together. Like I've said a million times, like I think there actually is some type of working relationship. I mean, billionaires talk to other billionaires. It's, you know, that's the way I see it. I mean, I don't know. Again.
I tell you what, I'd love to see. I know it's controversial stuff. I would love to see it that they do some more of these releases, but that should be a storyline based. Like Finn, they go, we'll release somebody, go to AEW, we'll work together, and we'll keep it quiet. Nobody, none of the dirt sheets will know. Ross Sapp and Fightful, none of them will know. And really, it's one big storyline. Like certain wrestlers, I think they could do that. I think this whole thing of releasing talent and stuff like that. No one wants to see anybody lose their job, but what's stopping it being a storyline at some point?
Well, I mean, nobody really knew that ECW and WWE had that kind of working relationship, right? Like nobody knew it, right? So why couldn't it happen now? Why couldn't it be like, okay, Aleister Black, I don't really see you as being a massive star right now, but if we get rid of you, you'll get some fanfare because everybody hates us. Then you'll go over there, you make another big name for yourself. You'll everybody will be happy again, and then boom, we'll snatch you up in a year's time or 6, 7, 8 months time, something like that.
I always never thought we'd see Bret Hart come back to WWE after the Montreal Screwjob, and the fact he came back years later, although he paid a lot, there's never say never with anybody. That's the thing. The only thing that makes me question it is with AEW getting people such as the CM Punk and Daniel Bryan and stuff like that. That's where I think Vince McMahon will lose his head when it comes to it. I know he doesn't want CM Punk, but if he does see them sort of start building, imagine AEW beats Raw. That's what I'd love to kind of see and what the response is. Although they're never going to overtake them financially, that would be where he's under attack, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the end story, never say never, and money heals all wounds. So
it does.
You know what I'm saying?
Should be.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get back to the chat. I like King Nakamura, but Cesaro should be in his shoes right now. I think Cesaro will. It's either him or Nakamura that will get that IC title off of Apollo at SummerSlam, most likely. Maybe triple threat.
It's a shame Cesaro's still stuck in the kind of title. He's gone down from where he started the year.
He just doesn't have it. It is what it is. He's just not the guy to kind of transcend to that next level.
He's one that could have been an NXT champion for me. Like if they were doing this sort of trading people and stuff, he's one that take him down to NXT where he could be an even bigger star than he is treated on Raw.
He might have been better off going back down, yeah. Do you think Pete Dunne may be waiting to see what happens with Adam Cole? If Cole leaves, there's a spot at the top that Dunne would fill.
That's sensible. That's the thing. It's just a coincidence that both their contracts are up at the same time. I don't know how they've done that. The planning is awful.
Well, I mean, that's like a 4D chess move right there by Pete Dunne. If he knows that's going on, he's kind of like, oh, okay, let me wait because if this guy leaves, then I get his spot. But if I don't, I'll stick around and I'll still be getting money regardless. But that leads us directly into the last topic. The Adam Cole situation. What's going on with Adam Cole, Jones?
Loads of kind of stuff going on with that. So let's look at that. So obviously there was a meeting before SmackDown last night where Vince McMahon met Adam Cole. He's pleading to him to basically sign. They want to bring Adam Cole up to the main roster. Not clear on what brand if he does it, but Adam Cole also may want to go to AEW. His girlfriend or his wife to be is in AEW. So that's something that's there. And it's entirely down. I think WWE look at it like if Adam Cole does go to AEW, we can sign him in 5 years' time and it'll be even more over. As you said earlier, it's that as well. But for me, interested to see what happens. I think the thing with it is it's one of them things where they're going to have to sort of make a decision soon. Are you a fan of him going to AEW, or do you think he's going to be lost in the shuffle there with everybody else they're going to sign or signed already?
I always lean on the side he'll be lost in the shuffle because they have 1 million people on that roster, and they only have a handful of guys that are there like all the time. Everybody else kind of gets thrown in and out, and then there's like a handful of guys that are just there every single week. I don't know where he falls. It makes more sense because he has history with like a bunch of guys that are there. His wife is there and stuff like that. So you could play off of all that stuff. But honestly, they don't need any more people on their roster.
I think for me, like Adam Cole's got it all. He's got the ability, he's got the promos, he's got everything. He could be a star in AEW, but let's see what happens on the main roster. My only concern with him is because of his height, as we said earlier in the video, that I don't trust him on Raw and SmackDown. If he goes to Raw, I could see him being treated like a joke within a month or 2 months.
Yeah, I just, like I said before, I don't think Vince McMahon is just looking at him. Like, he probably sees him as like, all right, physically, he's not really anything to write home about. He doesn't really have a physical appearance that reads what Vince McMahon likes. And not just saying like a big body guy, like a big muscular dude, but somebody that has a little bit more of a physique. A Finn Balor type like that. Not a hulking individual, but very, very in tremendous physical condition. Something like that. You have other guys. It's something that adds to the optics of it. You have this guy, tremendous in ring, like Shawn Michaels, tremendous in ring performer, the best of all time. I had all this stuff, but he also had a physique and a look to him that came off well on television. You look at Adam Cole, he doesn't have that aspect to him. The height is one thing, but the physique is another. It's two different things. I mean,
I think if it was me, if I was Adam Cole, I've been there since 2017. I'm not earning main event roster money. Probably, I'm not getting the money I'd earn on the main roster. I'd be asking, is this all I've got? He's perfectly entitled really to go to AEW based on the way he's been treated, the way that he's continually been stuck on NXT. Like he came up to SmackDown for 1 week and they dropped him back straight away. Previously, which is when they had that sort of cancelled SmackDown. Do you remember that? Where he was there for one show, which is pretty cool. But
yeah,
for me, I think it's he's got to get the pay he deserves. This guy should be earning main roster money in that respect. I think he's one of them that he's far too good for NXT now. He's outgrown NXT.
Does he get it from AEW, that kind of money?
Probably. Like, I'm not being rude. Like, it'll be a big signing for AEW. Although you've got CM Punk, Daniel Bryan coming in at the same time, which is crazy. Having them three talents coming all at the same time, the timing is awful. Like, this is something you want to sort of delay if you can. I think get him signed, but let's keep him off TV for a while and bring it back after, because everything's gonna be about Punk and Bryan the next month. We can see that already.
That's the tough part. The timing is just just terrible timing for this whole thing. It's going to be interesting to see what Adam Cole ends up doing. Like, again, is it by choice that he hasn't gone up to the main roster? Does he have any say in
I
that?
don't think that. I don't think that. I don't think he's Ciampa. I don't think he's somebody that's saying I'm not going to go. I think it's one of them where you've had the whole Undisputed Era that's been dissolved for a while now, quite a long time. And it's just one of them things. I think a lot of it, if I was Adam Cole, I'd be fearful going on the main roster based on the treatment of Keith Lee, treatment of Karrion Kross, the treatment of various people, and go on and on. The list is so long of people that have been unsuccessful going up to the main roster from NXT. But for me, it's interesting. But the only time really that he's been kind of the Vince man's been aware of him from the sounds of things is yesterday, which he didn't want to get him bring up before. If you know somebody's got that talent of Adam Cole, if this was 99, this was Chris Jericho wouldn't be stuck on something like Heat. Like for 6 years or something or whatever, you know what I mean? He wouldn't be stuck.
Yeah, well, maybe I also think too is like there's other factors when you fall into. Maybe the locker room talks are like, oh, we don't want to go up to the main roster because we know we're gonna get treated like garbage. Maybe Triple H knows that as well, so he's telling guys like he's holding on to guys like I don't want you to go up because I know they're not gonna use you, and then we may lose you out of the company. I mean, look at Samoa Joe, goes to the main roster, has injury issues, but it kind of flounders out a little bit, goes to commentary, and then Triple H brings him back in. With that same aspect, and he's like, I don't want you to go up, Adam, because I know what's going to happen to you when you go up there. I know what Vince is looking for. I know what Vince sees in you when he looks at you. Stay here, you'll be better off, type of thing like that. Could be that too. I mean, because it seems like Triple H has a relationship with all these guys. Shawn Michaels could be in his ear as well. Road Dogg could be in their ear as well, and they know what's going on in the main roster, and they could be telling them like straight up, it might not be the best thing for you to do is to go up to the main roster.
If it goes up, where do you want to see him? Raw or SmackDown?
He's got to be on. Got to be on. I would like to see him better on SmackDown, but I think he has to go to Raw because Raw has like nothing.
Raw.
Yeah,
I say Raw because last year we need an opponent for Extreme Rules after Goldberg. After he beats Goldberg, probably.
It's weird. It's weird stuff, man. Okay, so I think Pete Dunne should have been the first NXT UK champion because Tyler Bate reign was short and would have made Pete Dunne's reign longer. Yeah, I mean, it feels like they kind of made the wrong choice on that. They just try to switch it back. Yeah. Let's see. I think the Forbidden Door is hurting AEW because I know AEW is being good helping other companies, but it's hurting their own company.
They're not helping anybody. They're not helping him. Sorry for that. They're not helping Impact Wrestling at all. They're hindering Impact Wrestling. So they may be getting certain wrestlers exposure on TV, but you've listed on many of your videos that what you think of the whole build of them helping Impact Wrestling and how it's non-existent.
Yeah, I think they've made Impact Wrestling to a joke, to be honest with you. I think they just made it like second-class citizens what they made it into. It's just not, it's not been good. The relationship's been really, really poorly done. It seems to be all AEW and that's it. Like I said, they'd rather show the NWA Women's Championship 10 times more than anything related to Impact on their show.
Of course.
I think WWE are setting up King Nakamura versus Apollo Crews for the Intercontinental title at SummerSlam because they had a match this week and the Nakamura won by DQ. Yeah, I think that's where they're going to go. If they're not going to go with Cesaro, it'll be Nakamura probably beating him there.
It makes sense.
I was listening to Malachi Black interview with Jericho, and he talked about his release, and he said he laughed and said to his wife, I think we're going to be okay when he was given his release. Interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if he knew that his wife was coming back to WWE after the whole
Interesting. I mean, you just keep feeding the conspiracy theory, man. It's in there. It's out there. I'm telling you, there's something going on. Is King Nakamura a King of the Ring winner? No. I mean, they beat King Corbin, who was King of the Ring winner. So
it wasn't a tournament, no. He didn't go for 3 people to win the tournament.
That is true. Adam Cole could go to AEW and join the Elite. It makes the most sense, right? Like because they have the background, they have the history and stuff like that. Yeah.
He could do. He could be a good counter to CM Punk.
He can go back to Japan as well too.
Yeah, he could.
Your guys' thoughts on Christian Cage being the new number 1 contender for the AEW World Championship with All In coming up? I think it's not good. You heard the reaction from the fans when Christian Cage pretty much announced that he's coming after Kenny Omega on Dynamite. They booed him. They booed that announcement heavy. So people aren't a fan of this.
I think the thing with it is you spent so much time hyping Hangman Page as a feel-good story, and the fact you dropped it with no notice. And although Christian Cage is unbeaten in AEW, this isn't a Christian Cage in his prime. This is a guy that couldn't even get a match in WWE earlier this year.
You missed the boat with it because when he came in, he kind of teased Kenny in the beginning. You should have just done it there rather than messing around with Hardy and Matt Hardy and his family.
I think he's lost his heat a bit since then as well. I think the whole buzz of him coming in was a nice surprise. And then that's kind of gone a bit, although he's obviously unbeaten, but he's just a filler opponent. They're not going to have Christian Cage beat Omega, that's for sure. Yeah,
it's not going to happen. It sucks that McMahon didn't want to push Finn Balor in 2016, but Triple H convinced him to, but Finn Balor got hurt and it proved Vince McMahon right. Yeah, I mean, I guess.
It's unfortunate, really.
Yeah, it really is. Oh, Silk, so Anthony, you're saying Adam Cole isn't a sexy boy, LOL. He's a very, very good-looking guy. But in terms of what I'm talking about, the physique, it's not there in terms of being a very like, in shape, cut, lean guy, which I think would lend himself better on the main roster in front of Vince McMahon.
Yeah, I think that Vince obviously only wants guys that are 6'6", that are the size of Omos. Like, I'll put it out there, Omos is going to get a bigger push than Adam Cole on the main roster.
Yeah, when you have that type of size, he's going to push you no matter what. Vince McMahon not like wrestlers who are getting injured during title reigns. I mean, it's kind of like it's a freak thing. I mean, you can't really prevent it. It sucks, but Sasha Banks and Alexa Bliss fan base are weird. I'm hyped for August 15, 16, 17 because of Impact Wrestling spoilers. Okay. So many of them. Black didn't know Zelina was going back to SmackDown when he was released.
Okay, that does kind of surprise me. I think the thing with it is she had to kind of back down. Like, she did that whole thing about union of wrestlers, and then obviously has to go back on it, which controversial, really.
Yeah, definitely. It should be Kenny Omega versus Hangman Adam Page for the AEW World Championship at All Out.
It was going to be until Daniel Bryan and CM Punk signed, basically.
It seemed like that's what caused it. Yeah. Do you like spoilers? Yes and no.
I think it depends what it is. Like, I think I've got to be honest with you though. Like, obviously covering wrestling for a podcast and stuff like that. This whole thing with CM Punk would have been much better if we didn't know. Like, if we didn't know that was going to happen, the reaction would have been so much better. Whereas we've known for weeks now. It's the same with Goldberg and sort of Lashley. You kind of, all this stuff is so obvious and out there.
Yeah, if we wouldn't have heard anything and then you just would have heard Darby Allin say the best in the world, it would have been a massive shock.
I wouldn't have even done that. I wouldn't even told hinted, but I know they want the pay-per-view buys. I get that. They want to sell at the arena.
And they want people to tune in for Rampage because like the second show, it's only an hour. People are going to see it as an afterthought, and they just want people to kind of tune in. I mean, you saw this past Wednesday, they had the one guy in the crowd with the CM Punk shirt. They cut to him as soon as Darby Allin's entrance happened. It's just funny stuff, the way they kind of just teasing it. Here's what I think. Wait for the show when I can look at spoilers. I feel sorry for Adam Hangman Page. So do I. I do. I feel like he should have had the spot. I don't know if he has any say in the matter and he's just kind of agreed with it. I don't know.
No, I don't know. I think it's one of them really where bigger fish are coming in, as we said. But in terms of spoilers and stuff, I think it's hard. Like, if you know something's going to happen, yes, some spoilers are good, but I don't want to know the results of a match. And it's obvious, though, a lot of these matches in WWE, we know the results. Like, Roman Reigns is winning every month. That's that take a rocket science to fix that out. Yeah.
I don't know why Daniel Bryan and CM Punk have to be in the title picture right when they go to AEW. I thought AEW say win and losses matter, and you had to earn a title shot. Not when you got a big ass name like those two guys.
They may not both be in it, but let's look at what they're paying these guys. They're going to be paying these guys. I don't even want to think what they'll be paying both of them to come back. CM Punk, they've been in wrestling for years and years and years. Daniel Bryan was at the WrestleMania main event. It's one of them things, really. What is the purpose of them coming in other than to try and close the gap on WWE and make money?
Yeah, to me, it's just for them to have those guys in there. Like, I made the pros and cons video between these two guys. You can check it out on my channel. But also, it's just like these two guys bring a lot of big name value. They'll get your foot in the door in a lot of different places. That adds to it. It's a lot of clout involved here when it comes to pro wrestling. Like, you have these two big names, one of them being one of the biggest names because he hasn't wrestled for a long time, such an infamous exit from WWE with everything that happened afterwards. You have this other guy who was in the WrestleMania main event and had one of the biggest grassroots movements in wrestling history with the Yes Movement getting into WrestleMania 30 main event. You have these two guys, they get your foot into a lot of doors that might be closed otherwise. So that's like probably the main reason as to why you would push them so hard as soon as they come in. Oh, I forgot. Championship contender matches. Vince's new favorite match stipulation. How stupid. Got that right. Zelina's match on SmackDown was changed to this instead of a title match. It's the dumbest thing ever. We talked about last week. Me and Jonesy is stupid. It's like you got to be the champion twice. It doesn't make no sense. Like, you got to be the champion to get a championship match. You got to be the champion again to win the championship.
It's the laziest thing ever. Like, there is sort of, don't get me wrong, it's great to see certain wrestlers have matches because of the in-ring work, but by the time you get to pay for you're just going to be burnt out. Like, for me personally, I think if I've seen them already, I get it. This person gets like the old days, they used to get a fluke win in like a tag match or something over the person. It's fine, but this contenders match, by the time you get there, it's just, why do you need to see it again?
Yeah, it's asking why are they being called championship contender? It's like it's rather than having built two people to be number one contenders and have a number one contenders match.
That'd be far better. That always worked. Why change it?
Yeah, it's just like lazy. Just cutting in half and have him beat the champion. He beats the champion, you get title match. That's it. Makes no sense. But with that being said, that's the Rasslin Report, episode number 5. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. It's all about more and more releases, more and more roster cuts. We're going to see more in the upcoming few days, few weeks, most likely. We'll see what happens with SummerSlam. We'll see what happens with the upcoming shows for WWE and AEW. If anything, if there's any cancellations, any changes back to Daily's Place or the Thunderdome, or the Toyota Center in Houston. Who knows? We'll see what happens with the ongoing, never-ending pandemic. But appreciate everybody for tuning in. Appreciate for Jonesy for joining me again for episode 5.
No worries. Thanks for having me again. It's been great. I've enjoyed it.
Great time as always. Thank you everybody in the chat for joining us and all your wonderful stuff that you guys brought up, questions, opinions. We appreciate everything. Appreciate all the engagement. Make sure you subscribe to this channel if you're not, and obviously make sure you subscribe to Jonesy Chats Wrestling if you're not. We'll catch you guys same time, same place next week, hopefully with less roster cuts.
Let's hope so.
Hopefully, but more surprises. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you guys.